Hey guys, how's it going? And today I have a replay from DexFreak in their Tier 8 Russian destroyer, the Kiev. Now, at the start of the game, you're seeing him do something that you don't usually see Russian destroyers do. He is capping the sea point. It's something Russians aren't known for because you can see it on the Kiev here. It doesn't have the best of detection ranges. Its detection range is actually the same as its torpedo range, which is about 8 kilometers. So yeah, nothing super amazing. It can gunfight other destroyers quite well, but it's not exactly the best brawler if you get something else that's really fast firing that can match it per firepower. But it's that detection that really makes these things not want to cap, because a cruiser that rolls into the cap zone or is supporting a destroyer that's spotting you is going to wreck you. So yeah, right off the bat, into a cap zone, he's being very good with the positioning, hiding behind the island, gently, or I shouldn't say gently, he's slowly capping, just making sure that nothing can really spot him, and that if something does have to spot him, they're going to either be in the cap zone or within his detection range. So, very well positioned at the start, and you can see he's actually watching to see where the enemy team's deploying, which it looks like the friendly team has kind of balled up behind Bravo and is kind of making their way north. It's not exactly the best setup, and they have just lost to Sims to an independence, so not exactly the best start. But you can see he's now reversing out. Rather than going forward and figuring out what enemy ships are over there, he's actually backing up and heading towards Bravo, and he's going to try to engage that Gallant that's over there, the Tier 6 British destroyer. So, where did that guy go? He disappeared. I believe he popped a smoke, and he was pestering the friendly battleships that are positioned behind DexFreak here. So Kiev, using that fast speed, he's going to dart over to Bravo and see if he can engage that Gallant. Yeah, definitely didn't want to run south into that enemy team. You can see he's kind of lining up torpedoes. Like I said, they only have an 8-kilometer range. Those ships are 10.5 kilometers out, but he is launching them in case those enemy ships do charge north, because at that point they may have a chance of running into it. But it does look like they're pretty content on just running the outside of those islands. So while there's a little lull, what's special about the Kiev? Well, it's fast. It's a very good gunboat platform. You can see he's actually firing on the Queen Elizabeth here. And he's not really giving a damn about the Gallant, who actually just popped up in front of him. The one neat thing about this destroyer, and you just saw it go off on his ship, is it's got a secondary battery. It's a small 2-barreled thing, and you can see the little shells going off there. I don't quite remember its caliber, but it's located on the back of the ship. And it's just a really, really unique thing about the ship, because I believe it's the only destroyer in the game with a secondary battery. And we're going to see that battery get a little bit of action later in the game. It's not going to be a close quarters expert, but it's going to get a little bit of action. Ooh, there's the Gallant's torpedoes. It looks like that spread is going to be dodged, and it looks like he fired the other one too far. But you can see Dex is not putting out that fire. He's not too worried about it. He's got 19,000 health, and that fire is not doing a super huge amount. And he's quickly whittled down this Gallant. You can see he's actually got a secondary hit on the poor guy, and he's lit another fire on him. So yeah, that poor Gallant is not long for this world. He is leading a little bit far forward though. The Gallant's engines are out, and I think he would have secured that kill if he hadn't been leading like the Gallant had full engine speed. But I think I would have led the same way. So, back to pestering the Queen Elizabeth. There's 2,500 damage. A little bit less. Aim a little bit more forward, buddy. Come on. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Hit that superstructure. Hit the deck in between those two, and just pester him away from that cap zone. There's a fire on him. Little Russian fire starters definitely living up to their name. There is a Fuso heading this way, however, the Tier 6 Japanese battleship, and that thing has a lot of guns. Now, usually battleships aren't a huge threat to these Russian destroyers, but with enough guns, they're going to land a hit. And Russian destroyers are big enough that a hit from a battleship has a decent chance of penetrating to the full extent. So it is a bit of a threat. But he just turned into torpedoes in torpedo range. Oh boy. This poor guy. You can see Dex has noticed that and has started to switch his fire to him. Queen Elizabeth got set on fire. He can't put that fire out. This Fuso is about to take quite a few torpedoes here. At least 3 maybe? Depends on what kind of speed he chooses here. Yeah, that's definitely going to be 3. Russian torpedoes aren't the best, but yeah, they'll definitely chunk that Fuso. So, switching fire back to Fuso. Looks like he's trying to blind fire into the smoke, while Dex is trying to set a fire on him that he cannot put out. And there it is. Perfect. But he's out of smoke. The Queen Elizabeth has gotten really close, and that thing's high explosive shells are actually pretty deadly. So you can see he's starting to kite away. He popped the engine boost to further increase the Russian speedboat speed. Well, I guess the Cobb is faster, but it's still a really fast destroyer. And he's just kiting this Elizabeth away. The Elizabeth hasn't really taken notice. It doesn't seem to really care that there's a destroyer here, even though that destroyer's been whittling down its health and has just set another fire on him. At least that carrier must have manual dropped those. That was a really long drop for such a tight turning ship. Or did I say manual? Auto. I meant auto. Sorry. But that drop must have set a flooding because the Queen Elizabeth has put out the fire. So, just like what any self-respecting Russian captain would do, you can see that Dex is trying to set another fire on this guy while he can't put one out, and basically farm that fire damage. So come on, we're getting really good damage off on him. We're doing really good with the penetrations, but we just need one fire, and he just got behind the island, which is not going to allow Dex to get some shots on him. So you can see Dex swinging the ship around. Something shot this way. I'm not sure if that was the Elizabeth. Oh, Dex has actually decided to go the other way around the island. I thought he was going to swing back and actually try to flank that guy, but he's going towards the front of the Elizabeth. Now, like I said, torpedoes are the same range as detection, but Dex hasn't really stopped firing this game. The only time he's been undetected and torpedoing was when he was in smoke, and the Fuso basically ran into those. The Queen Elizabeth had no chance of getting hit by those. But you can see, up from behind the island, started pounding the Queen, well, I shouldn't say pounding because he missed, but started to fire on the Queen Elizabeth again, trying to get one of those nice red communist fires going on him. Not a lot of damage though. He's taking out a lot of anti-aircraft, but that's not really what we need. 2 sets of torpedoes in the water. The Queen Elizabeth is turning in, and he is within torpedo range. So as long as he doesn't radically change his movements, which he kind of just did, Dex is going to be okay. And you can see Dex popping his smoke screen as the Queen Elizabeth turns this way. He does not want to get shot by those rifles on the Queen Elizabeth. And he did get a fire on him, and you can see the secondary battery's actually gotten 2 hits so far. So, yeah, go AI. But just unloading on this Elizabeth, and it looks like he didn't quite expect the torpedoes as he has turned to his side, eaten 2 torpedoes, and sunk. But that's not where the trouble is now. The trouble is yeah. That Alabama. Alabama has very good torpedo resistance. The Alabama also has the American Damage Control Party with the 20-second activation or active time, so it's really good at keeping fires off itself. It also has very kind of small superstructure, and you can see Dex isn't really doing any damage to it. He's getting a bit here and there, but a lot of these shells are just kind of shattering because the deck armor of the Alabama, it's not weak. It's a fairly strong ship, and Dex's shells are figuring that out right now. And like I said, it has really good torpedo protection, so if Dex just launches torpedoes randomly and it catches one, it might cause a flooding, but it's not going to sink that guy. Right now, the New Orleans is a little bit bigger threat though, because that thing has radar. Dex has switched his fire to him. That New Orleans is just about within radar range, but he's not going to live too long as the North Carolina shuts him down. Dex's smoke is about to leave though. The Alabama is an accurate ship with really good guns, so he does not want to be in front of those. But he also can't run away because he is detected, and he does kind of want to help his team since they are they're behind on points and they're not doing too hot with the ships. So He's pulled up his band pants, and he's going to get this Alabama, who just sunk his North Carolina. At the very least, we know that the Alabama is reloading. Well, now he is. He just fired at the battleship behind Dex's Kiev. His secondaries have taken notice, but it doesn't look like he's quite accepted the fact that there's a destroyer on his side. Or maybe he just doesn't think that the Russian destroyer is a threat. Dex is about to prove him wrong. You can see Dex actually switches the armor piercing here. It's a very smart idea since the Alabama doesn't have the best side armor, and you can definitely penetrate it with armor piercing from these little guns. So there's 2 torpedo hits. You can see it didn't quite finish him off, but cool guys don't look at explosions. 2 more torpedo hits sends that guy to the bottom, as Dex immediately turns to his next threat, which is that Fuso that he torpedoed earlier. Yeah, that Fuso is not too happy about that. But then again, Dex is starting to get quite a bit of support. He's got a New Orleans behind him, and he's got some battleships in the south. The problem is he's spotted. The enemy carrier's floating planes overhead. He's really close to his Fuso, and there's a Gneisenau right there. Gneisenaus are good secondary ships if they are secondary build. We're going to find out here pretty soon whether this guy is or not. There's the high caliber award, of course, and there's that poor Fuso. Fuso's closer, switching fire to him, sets a fire on him. That poor guy has just been beaten and battered this entire game. And looks like he decided to put out that single fire. You gotta love players that put out one fire. It just makes such a nice, I don't know, marshmallow roast afterwards. It just makes it so simple to burn them down. But the Gneisenau's actually come closer, and since he's showing his broadside, Dex actually switches to armor piercing. And he got off quite a bit of damage there, rolling for about 2,500, I think. Yeah, and that Fuso still thinks he's going to fire at Dex in smoke. And it looks like the Gneisenau thought so too, because he dropped torpedoes this way. Too bad Dex is a little bit smarter than that and has actually moved away from both the path of torpedoes and where that Fuso would have fired. Yeah, goodbye Fuso, you had a nice try. You got 2 shots into smoke. You rolled zeros for both of those, and you got torn apart. So now it's just down to this Gneisenau. The Scharnhorst just killed that Fuso, and now he's turning broadside to that Gneisenau. There's not a huge difference between the ships, but the rifles are different. The Scharnhorst actually has smaller guns, though it has more of them. And it does look like the Gneisenau just ate a torpedo from said Scharnhorst. So he did just put out his fires and his flooding, but he did torpedo the Scharnhorst. So we're starting to run out of allies here. The armor piercing's doing a little bit here, but definitely the high explosive will do more. Then again, when the New Mexico just flattens him from the front, I guess it's not that much of a threat. So, 2 enemy ships left. Dex has made a really big attempt to turn this around by taking both caps and just messing with this enemy team so much that they've basically screwed themselves. Of course, I shouldn't just say messing. He definitely charged in and took control of the situation, whether it was torpedoing the North Carolina, the Alabama, or, you know, brawling with the Gallant. Either way, Dex has definitely made a big contribution to the game, and this Atago is not a good sign. Definitely did not expect him around the corner, especially at that such close range. So, engine was out, steering was out, there's a fire on the ship, I do believe. Dex, the armor piercing's not going to do too much at the angle. Switch to high explosive, buddy. Then again, this Atago does seem to want to show broadside, and Dex narrowly avoids the island, making sure he doesn't get beached in front of the guy. The problem is Dex doesn't have a lot of support here, and he's a 7,000 health Kiev against an Atago that started with 30,000. It's not a great fight. The Atago has a lot of guns, and they're all pretty accurate, and they all do a lot of damage, as we saw with the first hit. And the Kiev's more of a DPM boat. It likes to continuously fire and slowly whittle down its opponents. And then again, that is a beached Atago. Like I said, the problem is both the battleships are down south, and the friendly cruiser isn't really making himself much use, I guess. Oh no, the armor piercing's not doing a lot of damage. That's not good. The Atago also has 10-kilometer torpedoes, and that's nothing that Dex wants to go torpedo run. Looks like the enemy carrier has taken an interest here, The Atago has actually set Dex on fire. The enemy carrier has completely missed those torpedoes. And you can see Dex is actually getting closer to this guy. He can't afford to really turn out because the Atago is going to slap him. But he is going to toss some torpedoes downrange. And it looks like the Atago actually missed that. I'm not exactly sure what he was expecting there. There's some Atago torpedoes heading this way. You can see Dex getting the hell out of dodge to make sure those can't catch him. But once again, the armor piercing isn't really cooperating here. Dex ducks around the side of the island, and the armor piercing misses. Not doing a whole lot, but he is out trading that Atago. He's still at 7,000 health, and he's whittled that Atago down to almost half of what he was at before. So he is kind of winning this, and it's not... I wouldn't say it's a great situation, but it's still not the best, I should say. So, back to brawling with the Atago, 7.5 kilometers. That's a really close range. It's a lot closer than I'd really want to be to this thing. And yeah, there's another fire for the poor Kiev. So Dex, 5,600 health, 5,500 health. Come on, you got to put out that fire, buddy. That's going to toast you. Look at the Atago's getting really ballsy here and pushing on the Kiev. Of course, Dex lights him on fire in return. And luckily, the Atago is not rolling too high and actually missing. So come on, we got to sink this guy. We've out-traded him so far. He's done another 2,000 to us, and the New Orleans just got sunk by the Independence, which has given Dex more time to sink this guy, but it's not going to end the game. We were kind of looking to end the game so that Dex wouldn't get sunk here. But it looks like the Atago is coming around. He's definitely not using all his guns, which is quite weird. He seems very adamant on using those front two guns. So there's his shots. Are they going to hit? Come on. Yeah, light hit. Not the best, since 4 more of those are going to sink Dex. But he's still out trading him. He did quite a bit of damage in return, and it looks like the friendly battleships have started to engage. He got a fire on the Atago that I don't think he can put out. The armor piercing started to come in. There's 1,000 damage. Come on, a little bit more. Either that fire is going to put him down or the high explosive is. And he sinks him just before the Atago gets a shot. Or lands a shot, I should say. And zero, or I shouldn't say zero, it 1,000 out the points, I guess. The opposite of zero? I don't know. They won, and that's all that counts. And Dex wicked hard carried this game. Just putting all the work in, or I shouldn't say all the work, but he put in a lot of work for his team to ensure this was a win. He brawled a couple battleships. He got where he was needed. He brawled a destroyer. He brawled a cruiser even. And he was basically in contact with most of the enemy ships in the game. Definitely put in his work for it being a tier 6 to 8 match. And putting in a lot of torpedo work. Which was pretty surprising for the Kiev not being exactly the best torpedo boat. So, Dex, you may have been pink, but you definitely made a profit this game. 13,000 experience, Confederate, high caliber, all good endgame rewards. 178,000 damage with 9 torpedo hits and 12 secondary hits. Like I said, the secondary hits are important because the Kiev is the only destroyer with secondaries, or a secondary, and the 12 kind of shows how close he was to the enemy team for most of this game. And also, like I said, the Kiev is not exactly a capture or a flag capture boat, and the 2 captured flags that he has definitely attest to how much he was trying to help out the team and pushing for this win. He got that solo cap in the beginning, and then he jumped into Bravo when he had the chance. And of course, with all that damage done, he got first on his team with 2,500 base experience, with the closest guy being that supportive New Orleans with 2,000 right behind him. Of course, the enemy Independence definitely put in work. For being a tier 6 carrier in a tier 8 game, he made a pretty decent payout with that 1,000 base experience, so pretty good job to him. And hopefully he continues to improve with that so that he can hit Kievs with torpedoes in the future and end those pesky little boats. But on to the last screen, 178,000 damage done. 85,000 of that was with guns, which isn't it's about average for the ship. Like I said, it's a very DPM boat. It slowly whittles down its enemies. So you're not always focusing on the alpha damage, but that HE damage definitely can tick up. And you saw him make a lot of work of the armor piercing, which shows with that 20,000 damage done. Whenever you get a ship that's broadside at a decent range, Russian destroyer shells have the velocity to deal a decent amount of damage to them. And that's what makes him kind of a small cruiser, because these little guns on him, like I said, they're pretty deadly when they get your broadside and can slowly chew you down. 70,000 damage with torpedoes. Like I said in the beginning, not a torpedo boat. But I guess when all the battleships drive into torpedoes, or just ignore you when you're driving up next to them, you'll get that. And of course, 22,000 with fires. Usually the fire damage is what makes these boats special, because they kite around, they light fires, and they just bug the enemy team to death. But this one, he definitely put in more work, not just using the fires, though he did take advantage of the fire mechanic quite a few times while firing on ships while their DCP was on cooldown. So, very good job to him. Very good game in Kiev. Usually I don't like to post Russian destroyer replays because usually it's just kiting around the edge of the map, shooting at ships, not really outplaying anything. But DexFreak definitely showed how to outplay a team and to make yourself, I guess, more of a threat rather than just a pester force. So very good job. Hope you guys enjoyed. Good luck out there, and see you next time.